James serves as the co-director of Western Washington University Center for Economic and Business Research. In his role, he seeks to broaden the connections between the university, the College of Business and Economics, and the real world. Businesses, nonprofits, and government agencies through student internships, classroom-based projects, consultative projects drawing on faculty, staff, and students. James' core skills include research, financial modeling, business development, brand identity, marketing, finance, tax, and legal issues from a layman's perspective, he says, operations, growth management, and strategic partnering. And if that's not enough, oh my goodness. This is your, I think, third time with us at least, so we appreciate it, and I'm going to let him take it away.
How many people, let's be honest, how many people got up this morning and said, man, I hope someone talks economics today? No?
The bankers.
All right, well, my talks have become a lot easier because facts have really become optional in our society. So I've learned now that I truly can just make stuff up and it's okay. So, just buckle up, we're gonna have a good time. So, as I was finalizing this, I had a group of students in my office. It's finals week, so students are in a little different mindset this week. And we were talking about some reports they're finishing, and one of my guys said, I have the hardest time deciding how to title these things. And I was like, well, I'm doing a talk tomorrow, and I call it Headlines, Economics, Retail, and Sleepless Nights. And he was like, I gotta get more creative. Because all he could come up with is a survey of blah, blah, blah. And he's like, nobody's interested in that. I mean, you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, but it sounds good, right? So I want to just go through a bunch of different things today. And we're going to have some time for questions, so I'm sure someone has a one or two. But the idea of our talks really is to get you to think. Really take a look at data and really start to thinking about the information you are consuming out there and what it may mean. So, all that being said, she already gave you a good basic rundown on our center. Our center essentially is like a small consulting firm inside the university, and we work with people throughout the country. Most of our work's here in Washington State. We do a little bit in Canada. We've done some things nationally. We just wrapped up a study on the EB-5 program, which some of you may have known. It's being tossed around in Congress right now. It's highly controversial. You all don't even know about it. It's highly controversial. So that's kind of fun stuff we've done. But really, we just work with people to help them answer questions and give them frameworks to have good discussions. Because we think that's what's missing in a lot of us, is just having those good discussions. So what has our attention? What has, in other words, says, James, you see a lot of data. What keeps you up at night? Well, not much. I have two little kids. But the things that have people that I work with, the economists wandering our halls and having these conversations, there's some things that has our attention. Concept of structural and cyclical change. You, as a human, are predetermined to see everything as cyclical. Spring's coming. Summer will come after it. What if it didn't? That's a structural change. Coming out of the recession, our economy went through a massive structural change. And so you think it's just going to come back. What if it doesn't? What if it behaves differently and you don't understand the new rules to the game? Oh, that could be a problem. And it leads to all kinds of weird problems for businesses and individuals making choices they might not make if they understood the game was being played differently. So that has my attention. The story of automation and efficiency. The robots are coming. They're already here. They are the giant sucking sound that Ross Perot talked about is really the story of automation. The job losses that we've seen in the United States have not been created mostly from outsourcing or offshoring or whatever word you want to use. They really have been lost from automation. We have machines doing jobs that we used to do as citizens. That's really the story. It's just really hard to build walls around robots. So we paint these narratives around that. Great story that other slide deck, I've got a picture of the riveting machine that Boeing now uses for airplanes. And you look at the picture, wow, that's great. And then you look at the picture, there's a guy standing there watching the machine. That used to be 8 or 9 jobs. We're really excited in our communities because the manufacturer is going to move into the community. The problem is most manufacturing is done through automation. Very few jobs come with manufacturing. It does comes with some. Now you're like, okay, but we have lawyers, we have doctors, Let me introduce you to IBM Watson, who is now taking those jobs. Fascinating. The rules work differently. Changes in retail and mix of employment. We're going to talk more about retail in a little bit. We in the recovery have seen outside of the core metropolitan areas, recovery has mostly happened in the retail sector. When I say retail, I'm going to also lump in hospitality, basically the low-paying jobs in the spectrum. A lot of non-metropolitan communities have had recoveries, but they have these jobs that when there's another down cycle, and there will be one coming, those get hit hard first. So what does that mean for our non-metropolitan areas when we go through another down cycle? That has my attention. We have a new Fed chair. I know you guys all stay up on the news on this kind of stuff. Our Fed has a very large balance sheet. We bought a lot of securities. We bought our own debt. That's kind of a clever move. We bought our own debt, and it's sitting on our balance sheet. In other words, they're starting to sell it. What does that mean? I don't know. Is that pushing interest rates down or up? Interesting problems there. We also have a lot of tax policies and rumors of changes, and I can throw in all kinds of interesting foreign trade policies and rumors of changes. What does that do for businesses trying to make decisions? Boeing took a big hit on the talk around the new tariffs. It's going to impact a lot of companies in a lot of unique ways. So, some things to think about. Impact of immigration proposals and those possible actions. You may not be aware that both Microsoft and Amazon are building campuses, well, they're renting spaces, in Vancouver. They're both going to have around 4,000 employees right across the border. Why? Immigration. They're having a hard time getting the people they need in their companies in and out of the United States. So their response is, we'll just build a facility in Canada. That's 8,000 jobs that would have been in the Puget Sound area. Lost because of possible policy changes, which then we can get into a discussion where HQ2 is going to be. My money's on Toronto. Now, we also have housing. We have construction, zoning, affordability questions. And that's a whole other presentation, and that's another fun one if you guys want me to come back and talk about affordable housing. That one's fun. We also have the variance between metro and non-metro, and I'll show you a picture of what I mean about that here in a second. But the differences in recovery and what's happening in our metropolitan areas versus our non-metropolitan areas is stark. And so there's a lot of impacts around that. We also have geography-based challenges. Now here's another topic, and no one wants to take economics, no one wants to take geography. Geography is actually really cool. First of all, mobility, all-time low in the United States. You aren't moving any great distance. You're moving houses inside the same communities, but you're not moving. Who is moving are your young people. They're moving to the metropolitan areas. So what does that mean for counties like Whatcom County? I'll show you. The variety of economic realities for individuals, cost of living, wages, wage gaps. The wage gap that we have in the United States right now has never been seen before. The top earning people and the average earning people, that gap really you have to go back to just before the French Revolution to find another gap similar. We are 5 times larger than the next closest country. That as an economist worries me, because we have a consumer-based economy and we're taking more and more money away from consumers. It's kind of like building a tree house and taking part of the tree away. So this will probably be geography. Where does half of America live? Take the population by county, and you'll find that they live in 146 counties out of about 3,000 counties. Those blue areas are half the US population. There's actually a large swath of the United States where nobody lives at all. Fascinating. Those blue areas are also primarily where you find all the economic recovery that's happened post-recession. The rest of the map, you've seen people come back up to maybe where they were, but maybe not. Right? So now the headlines get confusing. Wait, I keep hearing people can't pay their bills. I keep hearing we're in all these economic trouble. But the stock market's doing great. Depends on where you live. So we're intrigued by what companies look like when they move from metropolitan areas to non-metropolitan areas. I mentioned automation and efficiency gains. companies are looking very differently from an employment standpoint when they move from Seattle to Whatcom County. They don't have the kind of employment base typically when they move because they're looking for efficiency gains inside their own business. So they're looking for automation. And that impacts the skill of the employees that they have that they're looking for. We also are very aware of coming out of the recession that companies have unbundled activities. There's a lot of great examples of this, but think about Boeing. Boeing once upon a time had an in-house print house. They did all their own printing. Their engineers were all in one place. The tier 2, tier 3 suppliers were actually inside of the company itself. They've unbundled that over the years because they found it's cheaper to take those pieces out. And now suddenly, instead of having engineers spread across 4 different, 5 different, 6 different states, I decided to put them all in one place because now they all work together. And so I start reorganizing how everything works. This has happened in all the major industries. They've unbundled it, which means you have a lot more small businesses now doing pieces of what used to be inside of other companies that paid a lot better. And that's part of the wage gap conversation. It's not that companies aren't just decided to stop paying people money. They got rid of the jobs that actually helped keep those funding up. We talk in Whatcom County and Skagit County about the fact there's not a lot of middle job market jobs. Middle job market jobs are what allow you to have high paying jobs. Because if my assistant manager makes $60,000 a year, I gotta pay 70 or 80 to my manager. I don't have an assistant manager, I can pay the manager 60 or 50 or 40 and tell them it's such a great place you can be in the mountains in an hour. Right? Commuting patterns have changed. Everett to Seattle, worst traffic in the United States. Why? Well, it costs 30% less to live in Everett than Seattle. Average job in Seattle is over $100,000 a year. You're going to pay me $30,000 a year to sit in my car for 2 hours a day? I can listen to the radio. I mean, wouldn't you take $30,000 a year to go listen to the radio for 2 hours? If you go, Reduction in work remote scenarios. This was a big thing going into the recession. Everyone's working remote. Companies are pushing people out. Go work from home, work from wherever. It's okay. That's not so much the case anymore. Companies are really interested in agglomeration effects. The agglomeration effect simply means that if I work for Adobe and you work for Microsoft, as an owner of one of those companies, I would like us to run into each other socially. Talk about our jobs. Go back to our jobs, learning a little bit, something that I now have added to my company. You don't get that from work remote. So a lot of the companies have canceled their work remote position. The one people that are getting work remote now typically are, well, Joe, you've been with the company for 60 years. You say you want to quit, but we really want you to stay here. So how about you come in 2 days a week and you can work remote for 3. All right. That's what work remote is turning into. Talked about low mobility and the flight to rural, myth but reality. When you look at where people are moving, they're moving to the cities, they're not moving to rural. Now, are people moving to rural communities? Sure. Those are real estate people in here, you guys have stories. There you go, you have stories. The problem with them, they're anecdotes. When you look at the data all rolled up, it doesn't hold up. Does not mean there's not money to be made, and those people are coming. But the volume is not what we would have expected 10 years ago. So the macro story in the economy really hasn't changed that much in the last couple of years of talking about the economy. I don't have a lot new to tell you. The recession became improved, which became grow in some communities. There's a lot of communities right now that are still 10, 15% below where they were pre-recession. Interesting. Think about that. Think about the dissonance of reading your local paper on the national news that has no connection to your local experience whatsoever. And what that must feel like. The growth has not happened equally across sectors or even within sectors. We've seen a lot more disparity between winners and losers, however you want to look at it. And definitely geography has played a huge role in it in a way that we have not seen in a long time. We're seeing significant headwinds in the economy from technology and increased productivity that's impacting job growth. It's impacting how companies invest their money. Winning and losing has become more dramatic for families through all of this. I mean, it's kind of fun. It's economists just around going, wow, I find that interesting. That's code for, wow, wouldn't want to be that person. Because that's the reality with a lot of this. There's a lot of things going on in the economy that you're like, whoa, I'm not okay with that, but wow. So what is the regional forecast? So last summer we started publishing, I guess is the right word, publishing the Puget Sound Economic Forecaster. It's a 26-year-old forecast publication started in Seattle by two guys that decided they wanted to retire. And so we rehomed the publication, and so I stole this right out of that. But if you look at what we expect to see in the Puget Sound region, so this is the Kings, Snohomish, Pierce, Kitsap counties, is where these numbers are being based off of. Whatcom County, as you can imagine, will be a little bit less than what we expect to see here. So you're going to see employment slowing down, personal income kind of staying stable, CPI fluctuating a little bit, housing permits are dropping, less houses are being built. Now that doesn't mean they're tearing the houses, don't think a negative as they're tearing houses down. That means the growth, that's a change in the rate. And then population, we expect to see some population increase, but 1% is not much to write about here in Whatcom County. King County, that's a big number. So employment growth has been roughly 2% for the last few years. We don't expect anything different there. And we don't really expect population to change. So steady as she goes. But if you're in the construction sector, it's going to start slowing down. So people. Now you see charts like this and you're like, I don't know what to look at. I made it simple for you. Check this out. Do you see on the top chart here the nice growth rate between 2010 and 2016 in King County? And what that looks like when they're 60s. And then I want you to look at Whatcom County. Whatcom County is aging in place. If you go back 10 years back further, those bars just move. There was a big, right before the recession, those few years, there was this big span of 50-year-olds moving to Whatcom County to semi-retire. Some of them started businesses. They didn't really care if they made a ton of money. They're semi-retired. It's okay. Those people are still here. There's just not another wave behind them. So think about what that might mean for the county, for services, for where money's being spent and how it's being allocated. So let's talk local. So at a meeting recently, we heard someone say, the reason we have low wages in Whatcom County is because we have so many small businesses. Now I have a hard time going to sessions because I know I sit in the back and try not to get involved, but inevitably somebody says something, I'm like, hold on. And this comes from the bumper stickers you might do. Small businesses are what make a community unique, right? That's what makes Whatcom County different. We have this metropolitan feel, but it's all these small businesses. It's wonderful. And we surely must have more than Seattle. I mean, think about Starbucks. They have 5,000 employees in one building. 4 restaurants, by the way, in that building. And then I get to, it just feels like it, right? It just feels like it. All right. Here's Whatcom County. Percent of businesses by size. Now, there's always a wiggle room in the data, so give me a little bit of there, but all the data's flawed the same way, so we'll be okay. We got this nice hockey stick shape. Economists love hockey sticks, so we love those. We got this nice shape here. Okay, we see this really high percentage of really small businesses. That's what I'm talking about. All right, well, let's look at Skagit County. Now, Skagit County, you might not be fair, because, they're right next door, and, how many big employers are there really in Skagit County? Well, about the same number for people that we have here, actually. Okay. Well, Seattle. Come on, Seattle. This is going to look exact opposite for Seattle. It got to. I mean, right? Oh. No. Turns out, we're not that special. It also turns out you can pick almost any place you want in the country and make the same chart. There is a natural ratio that occurs in a business ecosystem with the sizes and types of businesses. It just happens naturally because of the way money works. So much for it feels like it. And I'm actually hearing this a lot in presentations around the state as I travel. We get into discussions, I start putting facts on the table, and then I get told, well, it just feels like it. And I go back to my conversation to you about when you open the newspaper and you read something and it doesn't align with your personal experience, it kind of makes the whole thing stop. Because wait, that's not how I think it's like. All right. Well, the internet at least is killing retail, right? I mean, we can all agree on that. I mean, Toys R Us, Claire's, right? Claire's of all places. Are you kidding? How does that ear piercing place go out of business? Running out of ears, I guess. I don't know. JCPenney? Come on, where else? Who else has gone out of business? Big retailers. Sears, they've gone out of business multiple times. That's cheating. Sports Authority, right? I mean, we could make a list. We could just keep going. And it's like, retail's in serious trouble. Instead of that internet is killing it. Maybe it's actually a lot simpler than just saying the internet. Because while the internet's certainly part of it, the internet has definitely changed things. Business environments always change, right? Electricity changed the business environment. Cars, freeways, telephone. Maybe we just have too much. Do you ever wonder how much retail the United States has? We have a retail-based economy. Turns out each one of you are responsible for 23.5 feet of retail space. Think about that for a minute. In this country, there's 23.5 square feet of retail space that you are responsible for. That's a lot. Canada, 16. Australia, 11. Now, I've been to Australia. I didn't feel like they were under-retailed. I had no problem finding stuff to buy. We have half. And in the UK, 4.6. That's a quarter. And again, I had no problem finding stuff to buy there either. Do we have too much retail space? Are the deaths just being hyped? Well, this chart, the red line is closing, the black line is opening. So as much as retail is closing, it's also opening. Now there's a gap, and that gap is widening after the recession. Okay. Could that be connected to consumers having less dollars? Could it be connected to the internet? Could it be connected to the fact that America's aging in place, and as you age, you buy less stuff? All possible. The real trouble with retail is debt. Debt is what's killing retail. It's basic business. There's been so many leveraged buyouts, so many highly leveraged deals, that major retailers have way too much debt and cannot service it. That is why companies are going out of business. They can't generate the sales to pay the debt. Now, you guys have probably heard the commercials on TV. If you have more than $10,000 in credit card, you don't have to pay that back. Part of our culture. You declare bankruptcy. So, the non-adaptive business modeling is definitely part of it. You know, what we have seen is that the retailers that are in trouble are the ones that have to carry large amounts of inventory. Debt is what's killing retail. Internet, most retailers offer better coupons than the impact of what internet sales are doing to them. It's less than 10% in most industries. So they're perfectly happy to do a 25% off sale, but I'm freaking out about the 10% that I lost because of the internet. It's perception more than anything else. So this may surprise you, but Nordstrom is actually rated BAA. These are your major retailers and their rating of their debt and how much debt they have. Nordstrom, Kohl's, Macy's, Dillard's. Those are some of the better retail debt. Then we move into Bon-Ton, Sears, JCPenney. Remember, the worse your credit rating, the more you pay. So that's market price. Rates go up, your prices go up. All right, so that's okay, but if I can't pay my debt, I'm probably not paying my rent either. The red areas here are where you have the majority of the late payers in commercial space in the United States. I want you to think back to where I told you where all the economic recovery has been. You'll notice that the majority of these red squares are in areas where there has not been the accelerated recovery. We have a lot of retailers out there not paying their rent in very specific markets. And if you're a large retailer, you have a lot of stores in these areas, it becomes a really big problem. This, by the way, is how they, when Kmart announces they're going to close 50 stores. This is how they decide. Where are stores not performing well, let's get rid of those. 26.8% of retail loans in Pittsburgh are delinquent. Bankers, anyone nervous on that fact? 26%? And our local bankers should be concerned because the majority of retail debt is held by regional banks, not the big banks. 33% by regional/local banks. That should concern you. That does affect you. The national banks actually hold very little of this debt, which surprised me. I would have expected the Nordstroms, the et cetera, to be drawing on national banks much more than what the numbers are telling us. And of course, your 401k should worry about this 24% in commercially mortgage-backed securities. I seem to recall we had some problems with mortgage-backed securities. That kind of worries me a little bit. So, clothing stores and entertainment chains lead the store closing surge. This makes sense. High inventory. Oftentimes they have to pay for the inventory before they even have a chance to sell it. Announced store openings. Variety stores, apparel. Wait a minute. You told me a minute ago they were closing, that they're opening. Well, sure, but they're smaller. Boutique, niche market. I don't have to carry the inventory. I've been around with students. I don't understand why we have any shoe stores in our country. Do the math on how much it costs to run a shoe store, inventory alone, on the hopes that size 6.5 just comes in looking for the yellow flat. I've run a business for a long time and I wouldn't take those odds. But boutique stores that don't have to have huge inventories are opening in a lot. So hopefully I got you thinking here. By the way, try Googling America's retail apocalypse. There's a ton of studies out about just how bad it is in the retail sector that most people have no clue what's going on. The pictures of closed malls are always fun, but and a little spooky. But just the numbers alone coming into out of the retail sector should be alarming because so much of our general economy is based on consumer-based spending. And what we're seeing, canary in the coal mine are your corner stores. And it doesn't look so good for them on the macro level. How much time do we have left?
About 5 minutes of questions.
I'm sure they have no questions. Questions? Comments? Kleenex boxes?
I'm just wondering, is there anything that local governments can do to make us more resilient or help the businesses be more resilient?
The easy answer is not really. The longer answer and the more complete, the more honest answer is maybe. There's not a lot of data that shows that what's called smokestack chasing works. That's the economic development theory of attraction, where we're going to bring people in. What your local folks can do is help businesses that are here identify their bottlenecks to allow them to grow. It is one of the things we have conversations in a lot of communities about, as they're very busy trying to tell us how they're going to bring companies in. It's like, sit down with your companies, find out why they aren't growing. What's preventing them? Is it space? Is it land use? Is it traffic? Is it employment? What is the barrier that's preventing them from growing? And if you can deal with that, then you're actually starting to move the needle. This table is going for extra credit. They got 2 people.
Hi, James. I'm just wondering if you guys are doing any work on the impacts of the $11 minimum wage.
We have not done impacts on the $11 minimum wage piece. We've reviewed work that's been done. There's a bit of controversy in Seattle over 2 wage studies that have been done. They both have fallacies in them, which makes our life fun. They arrive at different conclusions. What we have noticed nationally when it comes to wages is that companies that are struggling with wage increases tend to not be healthy to begin with, and that's exacerbating their problems. Is they have cash management problems to start with, whether it's scalability of the business, or they've got too much debt, or the wrong kind of debt, or there's underlying reasons why they're having a hard time adapting to the wage. The piece of research we have done quite a bit of work around is looking at, and we've co-opted the phrase living wage, although we disagree with how most people define that, and said, what does it really cost to live in a community? What does it really cost to live in Whatcom County? And that's on our website. You guys can look at that. There's a Whatcom County economic profile, and you can actually see how much wage your household has to bring in to afford a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, or a house. And that may actually surprise some folks. It may surprise you that 20-some% of the community can't afford full-time workers can't afford a 1-bedroom apartment on what they earn working full-time. It may surprise you what those numbers stack out to be. And we think of household wages rather than a single person's wage, because that's a lifestyle choice. You can choose, and this sounds really weird to say, you can choose to have a double income household, or you can choose not to have a double income household. And you do that through a whole series of life choices, right? I mean, that's not I woke up today and I just decided. That was, I did this, I studied this, I learned this, I got this kind of career. There's a whole lifetime of choices you've made that ultimately arrives at the decision of, can I afford to have a single income household and live here on a job that I can have in this community? And so those kinds of analysis we've done, and we've done that analysis in multiple counties. Again, Whatcom County is not horribly unique in the percentages. San Juan County is like 80-something, 90% can't afford a 1-bedroom apartment. Number one, they have very few 1-bedroom apartments. Number two, most people go to San Juan to retire. They don't have jobs, so it skews the data. So that's what we know.
In 5 days, there's going to be the launch of the Chinese petrodollar. The U.S. had that monopoly for many, many years since Nixon. What's your forecast?
I'm not sure we've done very much analysis on this. I mean, it's the international stage is to say murky would be being kind. We have a lot of innuendos floating that is going to impact different things. Are we building a wall or are we not building a wall? Are we going to back out of NAFTA or not back out of NAFTA? Are we going to really export all this oil or are we not going to export all this oil? Without clarity, it's really hard to understand what's going to happen. The other challenge with it is it's new. Economists are really good at looking backwards. Now, well, based on the last 20 years, I can tell you what the next 6 weeks looks like. Maybe. It's hard when it's new because you're stuck trying to figure out, well, what does that mean? The United States has a very interesting narrative right now going on around foreign investment, foreign transactions, which is interesting because it's but guided in part by a lot of narratives that most of us wouldn't have face to face. If I told you the EB-5 program generates 6 times, almost 7 times the amount of money in tax revenue to the government as we spend on economic development, would you be opposed to it? If I told you it was less than 5% of total foreign investment in the United States, would you be opposed to it? Right? But instead we use other terminology and other things. So foreign stuff has been really problematic for us, trying to figure out how that's going to work. Foreign investment in the United States in particular, and then the transactions coming out of the United States in the oil market has been really problematic, just because you have a supply, perception of supply, and then you have the distribution channels, and all that stuff's in flux. So we'll see what the next 6 months has, and I think then we'll be able to better start saying, okay, let's look at these points.